Welcome back to the show, everyone, on video chat. We have Shelly Martinez, model, professional wrestler, content creator, all of the above. Shelly, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
I am too. When you tweeted me the other day, I've been meaning to have you on the show for a long time, but I've been so backlogged with scheduling interviews and having people on that, and rescheduling with technical glitches and stuff like that. And then when you said we should do a collaboration, I thought, yeah, well, that's the perfect place to start would be the interview, the famous, the world famous Stoner Jesus Show interview. So thanks for being here.
There you have it.
Before we get into anything else, obviously the last 6 or 7 months have been crazy worldwide. How's your life been affected by COVID? Are the people around you healthy and all that?
Everyone's healthy around me, thank goodness. As far as it affecting me, aside from being able to do everyday things normally or to maybe go to like a concert. I love going to tiki events or like little tiki shows. So like not being available, that really sucks. But other than that, my life hasn't really changed that much because I've been a full-time content creator for a few years now. So a lot of times, like I would even tell my audience, like I'm a little worried about my like pre-corona, a little worried about myself because I haven't left the house because it's so easy just to film everything here and then edit it and people get on my nerves. So it's like, I don't
Yeah.
want to deal with it. So, I've been kind of quarantined before quarantine was a thing. And then growing up, my mom was super strict. So I was always on lockdown. So I've literally been on lockdown on and off my entire life. So the psychological part didn't really F with me as much as it did a lot of people.
Yeah. It's weird too because now everybody is a at home content creator, like all the late night shows and everything's now doing
Yeah.
what I've been doing for a while now.
I know. And here's the thing that irks me about that. There's a fellow, I don't watch his program, so I don't know what his name is, but he's the host of The Daily Show. So
Yeah.
whenever I'm watching Comedy Central, usually for The Office, and they show him, I'm just like, just because you're at home doesn't mean that you have to ditch your suit. Where's your suit? Is this work? Where's your
Yeah.
suit? You just gotta put a little hoodie on? So that gets on my nerves, and but whatever.
Yeah. So they've all come to do what we're doing. And how long that'll last, who knows? They seem to be getting back to audience stuff and seems to be things seem to be opened up a little bit. But I'm still here doing what I've been doing for years now.
I know, and that's the other thing too is it's really funny, like, been doing content creating forever. My mom's never really understood it. And I always felt very judged by her, you know what I'm saying? For like, because she doesn't really know what I do because she doesn't care to ask. She just wants to assume, right?
Mm,
So people like that who are have looked at me as like, oh, what flaky Shelly, what is she doing over there with like this vlogging and podcast? Like, get what she needs to do something for real now. Like she's living in the clouds, and it's like now it's the normal. But
yeah.
I would have appreciated if like maybe some of those people, like my mother, would have been like, oh, now I get it. But instead, oh, she's Miss Zoom USA and she has a little background going on, and it's like, you,
Does she have a podcast
you.
yet? Because everybody seems to be having one.
No, well, she's a teacher, so she like does her teaching online, so that's why she
Yeah.
uses the Zoom a lot. And but it's just like, okay, lady,
Yeah.
all those judgy over there, just acting like they're all cool. I have a podcast, a couple of them, and I needed to get a better microphone because my microphone's messing up. So I went to like three different places, not realizing that a lot of mics were going to be out. And the reason why they were telling me is now that everyone's working from home, like we are just like mics like that are like selling out of. And I was like, I thought it was going to be so easy. Oh, I'll just go to Best Buy, no big deal. And my guest was coming over like physically like an hour or so. And I
Mm,
was like, wait a minute. What do you mean you don't have it? So I was going all crazy, but I guess I didn't think about that. It's like, yeah, people are buying up all the stuff that I'm used to as a content creator, being always in stock.
yeah. Everybody's discovered what we've known for a long time. So what I mentioned you're a professional wrestler. If people don't know, I've been watching a lot of videos on YouTube of your past matches and stuff like that, in ECW and TNA. What drew you to wrestling? What made you want to become a wrestler?
I know this sounds really lame, but I just knew I was always supposed to be a wrestler. And when I was younger, I was very just like in awe of how these people, especially like glow wrestling back in the 80s, these women doing these like crazy little like first of all, they were all really funny. Like there were always little bits, right? So it was really funny. And then some of them are looking super hot, some of them look super intimidating. It was like theater to me. And I've always gravitated to live performances like theater and stuff like that. So I just as a kid without even realizing it, I was just so like just in awe of it. And then I just knew that's what I was supposed to do. And so growing up, it's not like I was all crazy into it. I just knew that's like I said, what I was gonna do. And then boys distracted me for a while. So I kind of just didn't think about it. And then it came back, when I was getting ready to graduate from high school, I was like, well, how do I become a wrestler? Like, I don't know. Because for me, I grew up in California, still here, and the independent scene in wrestling was not what it is today. And in the Midwest, even in other countries and on the East Coast, it was more of I want to kind of say like mainstream thing that people knew that there was other wrestling out there other than just what's on TV. So what I would do is I went to after high school I went to college just for a little bit, but I knew I was gonna be a performer, so I was doing the whole modeling and acting thing. And what I would do is on sets or on auditions, I would always blab about how much I loved wrestling because I knew that was kind of weird and it would stand out to people. And I knew eventually someone would be like, "Oh, well, have you talked to so and so?" So eventually I got put in an independent film about wrestling and they used local wrestlers. And during downtime, I would just pick their brains and like, yeah, you go to wrestling school and then you put a tape together to send out to try to get, gigs. And then eventually when you have enough experience, you put a reel together and then that's when you send it to then WWF. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And so that's exactly what I did.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of kids are going to be running to look up what tapes are and all of that.
I know. My goodness gracious. But I love that journey I had with it though,
Mhm.
and that I was alive in that age during that time because I feel everything I learned, all the skills I learned about like selling myself, marketing myself, and things like that, it really helped me in this like social media age that became the new norm. Like a lot of my friends from wrestling, they'd be like, wow, like you're really good at promoting yourself or doing this, this, and this. And it's like, dude, we've been doing this for years. Like, it's not a
Absolutely.
big deal.
Yeah, I haven't watched wrestling in a very long time. There was two phases I went through. Like, I was a kid with Hulkamania, and that was a big thing to me. And then the Attitude Era of the WWF. Or it started with WCW when Hulk Hogan went over to WCW and NWO and all that stuff. But it's been a good at least 15 years since I watched wrestling. I understand it's changed a lot. It seems interesting now with like the video fan walls and all that stuff because the audience is one of the things I always loved about wrestling, and obviously I imagine wrestlers do too. That's when you get the in your face feedback. What do you think about the wrestling scene? Is anything that's going to change? Do you think they're going to get fans back into the stadiums? How are they going to cross that threshold of not having real people there and giving them that feedback?
I don't know because like who even knows what the hell's going to go on in life with just us normal people, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm retired, so now I'm a normal person. So, but it's crazy because I myself haven't watched wrestling in a really long time. The only time I would watch it is when I was doing the independents full time. After my time in WWE and TNA, I did the independents full time for a few years, and um, you know it's so crazy because that's the only like wrestling I would watch. I wouldn't watch TV anymore because WWE hurt my feelings real bad. Okay,
I was going to
so
ask you about
there was
that.
a long,
What happened there?
yeah, there was a long period of I couldn't even stand to like see the side of it because it would really trigger me and it just effed me up. So by the time I was done being butthurt about it all, um, I just was so out of it and didn't care to watch it. I just never
Mhm.
went back. But what was interesting to me, I was curious on how some of these performers, these wrestlers were going to be with no audience because when I would do training, first of all, I was always taught by I had my main trainers are two independent wrestlers here in SoCal, Ricky Reyes and Rocky Romero. And they would always tell me, the way you train is how you're going to be in a match. Like, this is not just practice for the moves, but practice your character and being comfortable yelling and selling, when things, hurt, and like make it look
Mm.
real. So when it was just one of those things where, like, when I would do training and I would just get into it, like how I was always trained, like when I was in WWE, for example, finally got there. I was on independence for about 5 years. Then I went to WWE. I saw a lot of people were very hesitant to do the drills. And not only that, but they would go through just the motions. And there was this terrible drill that Al Snow, he was a wrestler, now he's a trainer. When he was our trainer then, he would have us do this thing called 555. Now, what 555 is, whew, it's a lot. So it's this drill where you gotta, like, you run the ropes 5 times and there's another person with you. So you're crisscrossing. So you're making sure that, you don't hit each other. Then one person throws the person to the corner. And then when they're in the corner, you run after them and you got to kind of like leap over them. So it's like the person's like, if it was a match, it's kind of like, oh, you faked them out, whatever. So you have to do that 5 times and then you reverse it. It's just this whole thing. So what I would do is I would always pair up with people who were not afraid to make it seem like it was a match, like at the show. And what we would eventually do is we would whisper before we'd be like, okay, we'll just do two of this, one of those, three of those, and maybe, four of those. And so we wouldn't even do the whole drill because we were so entertaining with it, and we made it like a real match instead of just the drill. And then we thought we were being smart because we were not having to do all of the moves, which is so draining and tiring. If you do them too fast, you could feel like you're going to throw up afterwards. So then one day I remember our trainer, he goes, because me and my friend Dean Visk, shout out Dean Visk, he'll never see this. Um, we would always pair up. And he said one time to the class, he was like, Shelly and Dean over here, you think I don't know that they don't do the full drill? And I was like, oh. And he was like, they make it make sense. They're telling a story. That's how you do a match. And so when he started putting it like that, it was really just me being lazy and thinking I'm being a good little carny. It made sense to me. So when I would watch people still just, those were like a lot of times the same people instead of going, yeah, 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 it's a big difference. So those people, when it would be time for the show, a lot of times they wouldn't connect with the audience that well. And they looked like they were going through just the mechanics in the match and look sometimes a little douchey because you don't look intimidating or anything.
Yeah.
Yet the people that would get into it during the drills, those are the people that were very comfortable out there connecting with their audience. So when this whole non-audience thing happened with the corona, I was like, how are those same people when they don't have an audience to mask how stale they are, How is that going to work? I still haven't watched, but it makes me so curious because as a performer, I fed off of that audience every single time. And you can recharge yourself. So it's like, dude, how are these people adjusting to it? I don't know.
Yeah, from little bits I've watched, it seems well. First, they started with just nobody there, just like an empty studio and a ring, and now they have the video fan wall like they do in basketball and a few other places. And it seems you can tell that something's missing, right off the bat. There's just not the energy, and when they do try to bring the energy, sometimes it seems forced because there's nothing really there to back it up. As I said, I don't think I watch enough of it to be able to make a good comparison or whatever. But because the lack of wrestlers and lack of stories and stuff, that's why I stopped watching in the first place. What were some of your favorite people to work with as far as wrestlers go?
Oh my goodness. I've worked with some really amazing people. As far as like WWE goes, I loved working with Beth Phoenix. And it sucks because when I was on TV, they didn't really have me wrestling any of the girls, which was fine. Like I was fine with it. I just wanted to be part of the show. But what I would do is on my off days, at the time I was still living in Louisville, Kentucky, and that's where they have their wrestling, one of the wrestling schools at the time. And on my off days, I would often go to the local shows that we would put on, and have that's where I'd have my matches with like Beth and stuff like that. So Beth Phoenix was awesome. I didn't wrestle her when I was in WWE, but Mickey James, who is still at it, she's thriving in wrestling still. Her and I've had some amazing matches on the indies. Let's see, who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? I had a really awesome match with this gal, Rosita. She was Rosita in TNA, and she's, I think, Zelina is what her name is now in WWE. We had an awesome match. It was one of those shows where it was like at a football field, and there was just like a ring there. It was just so state fair feeling, and I love that. Like, don't get me wrong, being on the stage with like cool graphics and like the smoke coming and everything, that's cool and all, but I more vibed and got really excited for like these outdoor shows that were like at festivals. And like I did a Dukes of Hazzard festival and I was just the referee, but it was so much fun. It was like, it was so like carnival. And that's what always got me once I entered that world is I thought it was one thing at first, but then when I started hearing these stories and being in crappy shows where you get paid in nachos sometimes because the promoter doesn't have the money to pay you. Like, even though it sucked at the time, like all of that, that's kind of like what I signed up for. Like those stories, you know, and those are a lot of the stories that people don't really talk about because a lot of times it's just more like WWE driven, you know, but like people need to know, man, there's like an awesome scene out there in that independence, you know, where crazy things happen. Are you familiar with the movie Kill Bill too?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen the Kill Bill movies though.
Well, there's this whole fight scene. And during the fight scene, the two gals, the main chick and one of the villains, they fight and then they like one girl puts the chick's head in the toilet and then she flushes the toilet so that she can breathe and then they continue fighting like me and my homegirl totally had like reenacted that scene like at a show once and it's just like who does that? I was like, oh, let's do that Kill Bill scene, that was so badass. So it's like people don't, unless you're there, and that kind of makes it like this underground thing, you don't really know it happens. And so I kind of feel like I want that world to be exposed, but not too much because it still needs to stay a little underground. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I mentioned you spent a lot of time in ECW. Obviously, to the fan, ECW had a reputation for being, just balls to the wall all the time and a crazy place to be. What was it like working there?
You know, I was in the WWE version of ECW, so it
Yeah.
definitely wasn't as hardcore, but it was really awesome because they have brought back a lot of the originals, of course. And one of them was Francine, who was like their girl back in the day.
Yeah.
And Francine and I knew each other from an all female independent promotion that I worked with back in the day. And it allowed us to get really close. And to this day, she is like one of my best friends in the entire universe. And so, like, being with her and being that she's part of the originals, it's kind of like I got the pass more so to that world. And I feel like the ECW originals like accepted me as one of theirs because at first it was kind of like, oh, they're ECW guys and then the rest of the WWE guys. It was very segregated. And eventually they put the two together. But before that, that's when I got a taste of old ECW. Like I remember just like being on the road and the Sandman, who's one of the originals. I I don't know. I don't know what I was doing. You know, I was young, living my dream, my childhood dream. Here I am on the road with a bunch of ECW guys and like it was a minivan or something. And like this was before like phones had GPS and everything. And so we were over here with these maps, like trying to figure it out. And he would be like, just drive about 10 miles that way. Just, I have a feeling. So we were literally driving to this show because he had a feeling. We got there.
Wow.
Maybe we would have got there faster. So there was that. But what was really ECW, I guess, adjacent, a personal experience I had. Story short, we were in a town and there was like some boat convention going on, and there was like no hotels available. We find this super sketchy hotel, and you can hear when we were like ringing the bell for the guy to come. You can hear him in the in the back room, and it sounds like this. And we're like, oh my God, we like what's going on here? So he comes back, he's like wiping his nose, and he creepily helps us out. The guys go in one room. I was with Kelly, who was with ECW. She started with ECW, then was part of the mostly WWE brand, but she started with ECW. And when me and her, and she was secretly dating one of the guys, so they'd always use me as the little patsy. So she was gonna go off and like we were gonna go in the room, whatever, put our stuff down. She was gonna go hang out with the guy. So when we went in the room, it looked really like just not picked up, like no one cleaned it. So then I'm like, okay, whatever. So she's in the bathroom. She's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And I'm thinking, oh geez, what's wrong with the princess? Like, what's going on? Like, and then she's like, Shelly, you have to come here. I go in there, and I kid you not, this thick in the bathtub, there's blood. And then it's coming down onto the carpet. We follow it. It stops at the door. And my favorite horror movie is Psycho because it freaks me out. So here was my Psycho moment. And we went to tell the guy, and he was like, that's weird. I haven't checked that room out for days. And I'm like, oh, that makes me feel better. So he puts us in a room like two doors down. She goes off to go be with the dude. So I'm sitting there all night with the blankets, just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And to make, in my head, I was thinking because there, instead of them having like a little restaurant in the hotel, it was a Hooters. So like one of their ballrooms, they just made it into a Hooters. So I was like, what if it's one of those Hooter girls, man? Some guy brought her up here and killed her. And so I felt like that was very ECW. You know what I mean? Like I got a taste of these like crazy stories I would hear. And I never went to sleep the whole night. I was so tired at work the next day, and I was mad at
Wow.
Kelly. I was like, I can't believe you left me. Like, no.
I like the guy's response to the blood. Like, oh, that's a weird thing. I guess I'll go check it out.
Yeah. He was like, oh, that's weird. I haven't checked that room out in days. Okay, well, here's this room. And I'm thinking he's going to put us on a different, like, floor or something. Oh, two doors down. And the next day, we went to go see if, like, they cleaned anything. And the little, like, thingy was there so you can open the door. They didn't touch the room.
Wow.
They didn't touch it. And I was just like, oh my God, this is so bad.
So obviously, we talk a lot about cannabis on the show. You're a cannabis lover as well. What did you learn? What did you know about cannabis growing up, and when was the first time you smoked and why?
Well, for me, cannabis growing up, it definitely had a negative association because my family, um, there's like a lot of like cholos or Mexican gang members in it, stuff like that. That's why when I did my TNA character, it was like perfect because I was just making fun of them. But so you know, they did a lot of illegal things, and to me, I just kind of blamed it on the cannabis. But it's really weird because as I got older, my friends like in high school did it. And I was more like, well, if that's your thing, that's fine. And I was infamously known for saying, I've never smoked a marijuana cigarette a day in my life. I was real proud of it. I was real proud. And I felt like I just didn't need it and it was fine. And I actually developed this nickname, Funtime Shelly, because I was like straight edge without trying to be straight edge, and like everyone wanted to hang out. So that was then. And then when I got into wrestling, it was one of those things where like kind of like in high school, I was like, it's not my thing. If other people are doing it, whatever. But then when I went to Louisville and I developed my group of friends there, I became kind of like the person in the group where I would just always pass it, pass it, pass it. And I had just been on the road on ECW for like just a couple weeks, and there's a wrestler, RVD. He's huge into the cannabis world.
Absolutely.
And I kept bumping into him at different stops, like on along the way from like one show to another. And it was really interesting to me because you would think that would be common if we're all going to the same place, but at first, when we're first on ECW, the shows were really far apart. Like, I feel like maybe they were just trying to have shows where like ECW made good money before. So we were like on a separate schedule during the house shows than WWE was. So it was odd to bump into somebody because there was just so many miles in between. So every time I bump into him, and he had no idea what my stance was on cannabis, he'd be like, not only cannabis good for your body, but it's also good for the environment. Instead of cutting down trees, we can use hemp for paper. Like he would just tell me these like random things, and I was like, why is RVD? Is that what he just does? Is that why he's RVD? Like, hmm. But every time I bumped into him and he said something, I thought it was really interesting what he had to say. So when I went home after like the week long of being on the road, I started looking up what he was talking about. And I was like, wow, like he knows what he's talking about. So after I did my research, I remember I went to go hang out with my friends and I had it, we called it the trimmer because it was a bowl that was real big and it had like this alien face on it, but it looked like a trimmer from the movie Trimmers. So I remember looking at the trimmer and I was like, RVD said all this stuff. Like maybe I should just try it. Meanwhile, everybody around me is like in their own world because I don't do that, right? Never smoked a marijuana cigarette a day in my life. So I was like, screw it. I hit it and I was just like, oh my gosh. After I choked up a lung, I thought I was gonna puke. It was so cool because there was a part of me from high school to that day where I lost myself. And I felt like a big part of that was that's why people in life wish that they were young again because they just miss those days. You just, once they're gone, they're gone. So it really annoyed me and put me in a bad mood for many years that I just couldn't connect with that like high school Shelly. And it just bothered me because I had a lot of balance and peace in my life and it was really fulfilling my purpose. And so when I got medicated for the first time, I was like, I feel like high school Shelly. I thought I was never going to feel that way again. And from then on, I was like, that's it for me. This is my like medicine of choice. This is what going to be a part of my life because I feel like high school Shelly again. And so now here I am on Stoner Jesus's podcast.
That's right. You officially
Not
made
only,
it.
yeah, I've officially made it. And not only am I high school Shelly, but like I'm better than high school Shelly now because of being an old fart.
Absolutely. Oh, I know the feeling. If I ask you about the highest you've ever been, is there a specific instance or event that comes to mind?
Yes. Okay, so I live in SoCal, right?
Hmm.
And being that I'm a SoCal girl and the age that I am, of course, when I went into like modeling and acting, I became one of those girls on Sunset Boulevard all the time. I loved going to the Rainbow Bar and Grill. That was my thing. I just thought it was so cool. Even before I was a medicator, I just loved the energy there. So when I became one, it was awesome because that was really like a really well-known place here in SoCal that you knew you could smoke at. Like you could sit there, you can have drinks, you can eat as long as you're outside. And police come by, they don't bother you, like it's fine. So I would go there all the time. And I remember once I went there with my homeboy Bob, and we were just chilling, doing our thing. And there was this guy behind him, and I thought he was cute. And I was just like, started talking to him. And then he was rolling these really crazy joints, right? Like really fat joints. I was like, dude, yes. And so he invited me and Bob, because me and Bob used to say we're cousins. So we wouldn't throw any salt in each other's games because my cousin Bob, that's Bob, my cousin Bob. So he invited me and cousin Bob to sit with him and his homies at his table, and we were smoking. And I got lost in the moment and kept smoking joint after joint with them because it ends up that this dude, like I knew him through different people from like this tattoo shop back in the day. So I was like tripping out, right? You know how you can get like you don't even realize how high you are because you're just like,
Hmm.
whoa, crazy, like, and you get into it. So the rainbow's closing. They're telling us it's time to go. And I'm thinking, I'm fine. I've been talking so much. I haven't drank. So, okay, cool. We've just been medicating. As soon as I stood up, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. And so I started, when we were coming out of the rainbow, I started telling my friend Bob, I was yelling this part. I always go, "Oh my God, the devil's inside me!" And then I go up to Bob real quiet and I go, "I want him out." And I just kept yelling, "The devil's inside of me," but I kept whispering, "I want him out. I want him out." I was so freaked out. I was just like, I was so scared. And then like I kept doing so and then the guy that like I was talking to, he's just laughing as he's walking to his car because he knew what he did. Like he knew that he had the bomb. And so here's the thing. Turns out that the guy is like works at some kind of like fancy thing where he like is a chemist and all this. So when he was growing his stuff, he knew exactly to the T what he needed to do to make it just the bomb because he understands things in those terms. So sadly, and it's funny because the whole night I was freaked out. And then the next day, my friend was like, "Do you think you would ever do?" I said yes before he could finish. He was like, "Are you serious? I've never seen you like that, Shelly." He's like, "I've seen you so high, like you smoke all the time. I've never seen you like that." I was like, "Yes, and I want it." So I ended up getting a nice batch of it once. But the dude, it's because he wanted to date me. And I realized it wouldn't be a good thing. So he wouldn't just let me be his customer. So I got one good batch, one good scare, round, and that was good.
Ah,
So there's that. And then, oh, I have another one real quick too.
okay.
So being that I just started becoming a medicator when I started WWE, at that time, they allowed you to, when they did do drug testing, but they said if it's just cannabis, you're good. Like they didn't care at that time. I think things have changed now. So I remember I was just smoking out with an ECW original Sabu and a wrestler named MVP. Some people, if they're wrestling fans, may know him. And we were just smoking in this room. And my girlfriend that I was rooming with, I was waiting for her because she hadn't gotten to the hotel yet. So I'm just waiting and waiting. So there again, they're just talking. And I was just so tired. And I was just like, dude, I'll just keep smoking. And they kept like giving it to me. So I was like, okay, whatever. And then again, I sat up and I was like, oh my gosh. So I didn't want them to, I wanted to play it cool. I
Hmm.
didn't want, I didn't want Sabu or MVP to think I couldn't hang, but oh my gosh, I was like, no. So I was like, I'm just gonna get some fresh air real quick. And they're like, are you okay? I was like, oh yeah. And then I went out, I was like, oh my gosh. So I went and I called the guy I was dating at the time at the phone. I don't know why I didn't use my cell phone, but I was at the, oh no, I was on my cell phone, but there's a payphone. And so I was so freaked out and I was waiting for my friend to come that like, if this was the wall, right? If this was the wall, I kept going like this because I could have sworn that there was someone that was going to stab me.
Wow.
And there was like people trying to check in, totally normal people. They probably thought this girl's on drugs. Cause again, I was just,
Now the same people that were
so those
looking
are my
up
two
tapes
highlights.
earlier, they're now looking up payphones and seeing what those are all about.
I know. Well, I am 60 years old.
They used to be everywhere. It's if you wouldn't think of it now because you can't see them anywhere, but there used to be tons of them. And
I
then in
know.
20 years, they just all disappeared. It's crazy. Do you have any? Do you have any favorite strains or any go-to strains?
Right now I'm really enjoying there is a company called Pacific Stone. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Mm-mm.
They are very consistent. When I've been going to the dispensary, very compassionate priced. Um, they have an indica called Forbidden Fruit. I am obsessed with that Forbidden Fruit. It tastes so good. It's so purple. Um, it's only $20 an eighth, which for that to me, their indica, their that Forbidden Fruit, to me, the way it affects me, the way it tastes, and the way it smells. I easily see that like at 70, $80 at the dispensary for with other brands. And then they have a sativa called Orange. It's just orange and it's really good. That's what I got right here. And what I love about the orange is I often feel like after I smoke it, like I've had some glasses of champagne without like having glasses of champagne. So it's a good sativa.
I was going to ask you about your favorite devices there. So you have the bong. Are you more of a bong person?
I used to be a huge vape girl, but then my
Mhm.
vape broke. And you know how that goes. You say you're gonna get another one, you say you're gonna get another one, you say,
Mm,
and so then, but I've always loved bongs because I feel it's fast, it's like the
yeah.
fastest. I used to have that G pen, so I used to love doing dabs. Um, so I love it all, baby. But I guess right now, you kind of go through phases, I guess. I've been in the bong phase for quite some time, but there's the vaporizer I used forever until it finally took a dump on me, was the Ariz, I don't know, Ariz Solo.
Mhm.
And I really loved it. And they have another model that they have now, and I see, and it's one of those ones that have the attachments that you can put on your bong. So every time I think I'm gonna get it because it is a couple $100s for like the kit, something always comes up, some kind of weird bill. I had to pay for something, so it's always like, damn it. But that's what I have my eye on, and that's what I want to get because I love the idea of having something that's still vaporizer, so it's nice and clean, but still using the bong if I want to.
Absolutely. So going forward in the future, obviously, if Corona clears up or if it doesn't, what are your future plans? Do you have any future projects in the works?
Yeah, yeah. Right now I'm really building up my website. One of my websites is shellysecretsociety.com. And that's one of my member sites that's just kind of like catered to my fans that have been following me forever. But the other side of it as well is I have different videos on there and they're called custom videos or fantasy wrestling. That's kind of what I do, or it is what I do now. I don't do the pro stuff anymore. It's more of, just silliness. You think like Betty Page, college humor, things like that. So I'm really building my library there where it's honestly just a way for me and my girlfriends to make some money and have fun and just be stupid. So I'm really focused on that. And I just came out with some like a line of masks and stuff like that. So I'm getting it all organized still. So I got a lot of things going on. But if you want to check out anything that I'm doing, just go to my website, shellymartinez.net. Everything is there. I'm just always working on something. And I was talking to you earlier about YouTube. I have a YouTube channel and everything, but to me, I kind of put that on the back end. It's kind of just like a hobby because of the censorship and all that. But yeah, I'm always creating something silly. Earlier today, I was talking, I'm going to be collabing with somebody on some really fun stuff that's very superhero themed. So
Mhm.
I think that's really exciting. I'm very excited about that.
That sounds awesome. Obviously, you're at Shelly from Cali on Twitter. What's your Instagram?
My Instagram, okay, Shelly from Cali, the number 4, but it used to be Shelly from Cali, but Instagram told me that there was unusual activity on my account and to verify myself. And when I did, they deleted everything forever. And they gave me no reason. So I got really pissed and I wanted to give up on Instagram, but then I was like, man, some of my audience is there. I can't let my ego get in the way of that. So what I created is with my secret society, I used to have it to where if you were a certain member, because I had different tiers, that they would get access to my private Instagram, which was just like photos that were on the site and things like that. And so I was like, you know what? After this happened, I was like, I'm just going to do Shelly Martinez previews. And that shows all my previews for my OnlyFans page and my Secret Society. And then my Shelly from Kelly, number 4. That's just more of, yeah, there's some of that stuff, but it's more of just like promoting my podcast,
Mhm.
taking pictures of my dog, my food. So I guess you'd say kind of personal,
All the
my
stuff
personal
Instagram's
page,
known
but
for.
well, yeah, yeah. Well, because here's the thing. It's like I love keeping up with my friends on Instagram because my friends live all over the place, especially from wrestling. Like, man, like that's kind of the only way I can still be involved. But I don't know, like people find this odd when I say this. Aside from Twitter, because I do enjoy Twitter a lot, um, I really don't care about social media. I use it because I kind of have to, like for what I
Yeah.
do and what I've been doing, like I have to do it. And I'm not one of these people that, oh, I evolved with the times. It's like I've been living a .com life like for since before I became a wrestler. Like I was
Mm.
growing up here in SoCal, doing my modeling, trying to figure out the wrestling thing. One of my niches was doing pinup modeling. So there was a lot of gals that I bumped into, like Holly Madison, who had a show on E! Holly's World.
Hmm.
She's known for being Hugh Hefner's girlfriend.
Yeah.
Dita Von Teese, who's like the burlesque queen of the world. Stacy Burke, who's a huge fetish model. These are the girls that I was like working with the same photographers as them and stuff like that. And they always had websites. And I love that they still were working models, but they took control over their own content and what they wanted to put out and what they artistically wanted to put out there. And I always wanted that for myself. Like aside from the wrestling, I always wanted that. So that's why I've kind of like, it seems like I'm all into social media because I've been doing it for a long time, but it's just part of the gig, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I'm actually pretty private. I'm pretty private.
The only reason I'm on Facebook is all is because I have to be. So I maintain a page on there and post and all that stuff. But I don't find any joy in it. I like Twitter as well. I don't like it as much as I used to. With all the politics and stuff, it's become very contentious place. But there's still little pockets of fun on the website. That's for sure. Shelly,
Yeah,
thank
for
you
sure.
so
Oh, sorry.
much for being on the show. At Shelly from Cali, Shelly Martinez. Again, you've made it. You've been on the world famous Stoner Jesus show.
I made it. You know what? We got to smoke to that.
Absolutely. I think I have a bong here. Hold on. Maybe it would have something in it. Yes, it does. How about that? Look at
All
me being
right. Well,
prepared.
let's, cheers, amigo. Now it's official.
That's right. Now you've smoked with Stoner Jesus. It's all downhill from here.
As it should be.
Yes. Thanks for being on the show, Shelly. You have anything else to talk about? Anything else you want to promote? Anything? Let us know. We'll have you back on the show.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Shelly. Have a good night.
Adios.